What's up, y'all? This is Carla, aka Seela the Poet, and I'm talking about uh, my survival of my domestic violence experience. So, my first memory of domestic violence was when my father came home drunk and beat up my mother. They had some type of argument, and he, slapped her around, tried to choke her out, and by the time it was over, she had a bloody lip and she was crying, and he left. And I remember trying to comfort my mother, but she would not be comforted. She, was she after what she had just been through. Another memory I have is when my parents got into some type of an argument in my room. And I remember my father having my mother up against the wall, grabbed up by her neck, pushing her, and she's trying to fight back, and he's strong and he's overpowering her. And I remember her saying, go downstairs, go downstairs. And he's saying, come back up here, come back up here. And I remember I sat in the middle of the stairs and I just cried because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. So those were my first two memories of, abusive experiences, seeing domestic violence when I was a kid in my own house. There were quite a few other incidents, which I won't go into, but those were the two that stuck out in my mind. So I only came to the realization that I was going through abuse when I got married to my ex-husband. We got married in 2003. We eloped while we had just, I think I had just graduated from college, and we eloped and we got married. And it was like a secret, and it didn't take me long to get pregnant with my son. Once I got pregnant, that's when the abuse started. That's when, he started disrespecting me. He started, blaming me for all of the problems in his life. If he lost a job, it was my problem, or it was my fault because we got married and we should have waited, and, he told me that, he hoped something happened to my kid, while I was pregnant. He hoped something happened to that baby, was his words. And I knew what that meant. He wanted harm to come to our unborn child. So he said that to me. And I remember crying and yelling and being so upset, because this is his kid. I didn't get pregnant alone, but he's here, trying to curse my kid even before it came into the world. But thank God, nothing that he said came to pass. The abuse went in levels. At first, it was just verbal, calling me names like bitch and just being disrespectful and constantly kind of like tearing me down. And eventually, it got physical. Him getting in my face, him, grabbing me, him eventually hitting me. And, you grow up seeing this type of behavior and you think that it's normal, and it becomes so normalized that you don't even realize that, you're being violated. Like what's happening to you is wrong. I only started to realize that when something inside of me started rebelling. He would call me names and I knew what he was saying wasn't true. He would call me the B word, and I knew I wasn't the B word. You know, he would say messed up stuff about me, and I knew it wasn't true. I knew that I knew within me that, you know, what he was saying was not true, and I didn't deserve to be treated like that. So eventually I started fighting back. And I'm not saying that I got physically violent or whatever, but I started fighting back in terms of speaking up for myself. I started arguing back. I started talking back. I started standing up for myself. I started eventually filing police reports, you know. The first police report I think that I ever filed was in 2007. And I believe it was after we got into an argument and he pushed me. And so I filed a police report. Eventually I started documenting this stuff, you know, because with abuse, it always goes in levels. It goes level 1, level 2, then level 3. Then, you know, you end up making up. He ends up calming down. Things go back to normal. But then the cycle always starts all over again. And, yeah, so this is the type of stuff that I endured with him. The first time I ended up filing an order of protection against my ex-husband was in 2009. You know, he had been talking to a third party online about killing me. That person got so rattled that they called the cops and filed a complaint. But when I went to the police station, it was the same stuff, you know, that they showed me he was saying online was the same stuff that he would say to me after arguments. So, you know, they told me I should file a report, which I did, and that I should go to court and get an order of protection, which I eventually did. I ended up, you know, once I got that order of protection, I ended up staying away from him. There were times when, because we had, you know, a child, he had to come around, you know, to see he didn't have to come around me, but we had to go to court, you know, for child support, for custody, for a lot of different things. And, you know, all those court processes take time. You know, it takes time. It's a lot of emotional energy. It's hard sometimes to get a lawyer when you don't have enough money. They have some organizations that help domestic violence victims, but sometimes the waiting lists are really long, and it's not always easy to obtain a lawyer, but I was able to obtain one eventually. A domestic violence organization helped me, and, you know, I had a domestic violence advocate, and I had someone that was kind of there to kind of walk me through step by step all the different things I was experiencing. You know, the harassing text messages that he sent me, him coming to, you know, my mother's house, banging on the front door, accusing me of being with another guy, and there's no other guy there. It got really, really rough, you know, and what made it worse was eventually, you know, it got rough with me and my mother too. You know, my mother, you know, as much as I love her, she was kind of narcissistic. You know, she had her own issues. I think with her, she was more concerned about her reputation and how she looks to other people than how she actually treats people. You know, she cares more about, you know, reputations and appearances instead of how you actually treat a person within them, with caring about a person's soul. You know, I don't think she cared about my soul. And eventually we had a falling out, you know. Um, she didn't respect me. She loved to call me the B word too, call me a whole bunch of names. She loved to try to control me, you know. Um, I remember, I think one time she actually put trash in my room, and I can't remember why she did it, but it ended up being a big argument. I remember, I think she also put a password on the computer so that I couldn't go on it, but yet my sister and my other sisters were allowed to go on it, but I wasn't. So I was kind of, the black sheep, I guess. You know, Sometimes in abusive families, parents will choose favorites. They will treat, the favorite child. They'll give them all the love, all the affection, all the gifts, all the attention, and whoever the black sheep is the scapegoat. And I went through a scapegoat experience with her, where you know, she didn't have anything good to say about me. She was always talking about she should have never let me live back in her house, and you know, um, she tried to control everything. You know, um, it was too much. It's like I couldn't breathe. To the point where I couldn't be myself. And she wanted to be able to say whatever she wanted to me and do whatever she wanted to me without me responding. She wanted me to treat her as if she was God or something. And, she wasn't my God, and eventually I came to that realization that she wasn't my God and she was not treating me the way that I deserved to be treated, as a human being. Just common courtesy. If you tell somebody to back up, they should back up. If you tell somebody that you don't want to be yelled at or cursed at, then they shouldn't be yelling or cursing at you. If somebody is there talking about how they're going to fuck you up, how they're going to hurt you, it's these type of things should not be happening in front of children. And see, sometimes when she got into her little moods and we would have disputes, she would act like that in front of my kids. And my kids would end up crying and being upset and being affected. So eventually I had to leave that situation behind. When you feel like you're a constant target, when you're always being disrespected, you're always being targeted, you're always being blamed for something, it's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be in. So, yeah, I ended up having to leave that situation also. It's just, there's no real words to describe how it is when you have more than one abuser at the same time. I had my ex-husband doing what he was doing, and then I had her. She was able to lie to a lot of the rest of my family and ruin a lot of the relationships I had with a lot of extended family. She told them that I did things to her which I didn't, and they took her side. Whatever she told them about me, they accepted that as gospel truth, even though it was a whole bunch of lies. And there's a lot of family members that I used to, hang out with and stuff and do holidays with, and I don't do that with them no more. I don't have relationships anymore because of her. She turned a lot of people away, from me. She really did slander like my reputation and kind of ruin it, but it's okay. The way that I see it is people that are really for you and people that really, really know who you are, they're not just going to accept whatever someone else tells you about them. You know, they're not just going to accept any lie or any, type of rumor or whatever. If they could believe that, then that means that she had their minds. And so that was a loss that I also had to deal with, just kind of letting them go, letting go of not only her and immediate relatives, but emotionally and mentally letting go of the other family members, and just kind of understanding the dynamic, that it just wasn't a healthy dynamic. If you have other people believing another person's lies, and then they're going to go and they're going to be treating you the same way that the person that, is abusive towards you treats you, then you don't need to be around those type of people. So those are just a little bit more of the experiences that I went through with DV, and eventually I will make another video about it. Okay? Just wanted to share a little bit of my experience, and I'm hoping that one day this might help someone else, or might inspire somebody else to leave that type of situation behind, because that situation, all it's going to do is hurt your soul, and it's going to destroy your self-esteem, and it's going to just be destructive and mess the best part of your life up. And you don't need that. Everybody has worth because God made them. So that's all I have to say for now. God bless. Peace.